the supernatural.
Download the Legacy Edition of Spirit Blade, a full past audio drama, for free at spiritblade.com.
Rejoice, ye penny-pinching nerds! Rejoice! For this is a season unbound by our bank accounts, unfettered by fees. A legendary age of liberty. This is the Summer of Free! Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Welcome to another installment of our Summer of Free 2021 celebration. I am aiming to be your ally as you endeavor, along with me, to manage your finances in a God-honoring way. And I'm doing that, playing my small part that I can in your life by bringing you suggestions of some great free geek entertainment. And in each installment this year, I'll be recommending 2 movies, 1 TV series, and 1 console video game with single-player appeal. The first movie I'm going to recommend this time around is called Kin. You can watch this on voodoo.com, VUDU.com, free there with ads. The synopsis reads, chased by a vengeful criminal, the feds, and a gang of otherworldly soldiers, an ex-con and his adopted teenage brother go on the run with a weapon of mysterious origin as their only protection. I reviewed this one back in 2018. It's an urban family drama with a strong injection of sci-fi. I think if you go in expecting a ton of sci-fi and that being the main thing, you'll be disappointed. But if you go in ready to, enjoy and take in an urban family drama with, these surprising and very striking bursts of sci-fi, then I think you'll be primed best to appreciate it. It's also kind of a rogues on the run, almost kind of like a road trip story, except they're on the run, It has really solid casting, I think, and solid acting, including Dennis Quaid and James Franco in supporting roles. The CG visual effects, as I implied, are not frequent, but they really are great looking and I think spectacular in a number of ways when they show up in, like I said, these big bursts. And so it was really one of my favorite movies of 2018. Highly recommend Kin, K-I-N, over at VUDU.com. Next up, Snowpiercer. No, not the recent TV series, but the movie that it was inspired by and based on. You can find this over at tubitv.com, TUBITV.com. This is a movie starring Chris Evans when he was still in the early years of playing Captain America. The synopsis reads, in a future where a failed climate change experiment has killed all life except for the lucky few who boarded the Snowpiercer, a train that travels around the globe, a new class system emerges. And so the world is frozen over, and the only people that have survived are those that are on this train that is ceaselessly circling the globe. So it's a really weird premise. It definitely has a heavy-handed commentary on economics and minorities, but it's also such a weird, bizarre premise, and it has characters that I really cared about or was interested in, or villains that I love to hate. Of course, it spawned a TV series, so that should be an indication right there that, well, certainly some people thought this was worth checking out. I really think this is a gem that you probably haven't seen, but that is well worth, in my opinion, checking out for its performances and unusual science fiction premise. Okay, little insert here. Late in the recording process, I ran into a problem. I made my list for the movies and TV shows that I was going to put in the Summer of Free installments about, 2 weeks ago. And I forgot that some of these movies come in and out of these free streaming services, and as I was getting ready to edit this, I found that both Snowpiercer and Kin are on the Leaving Soon list over at tubitv.com, so by the time you see or hear this, they may already be gone. If not, you want to jump on them real fast over at tubitv.com, both Snowpiercer and Kin. But let me give you a couple other movie recommendations that we're going to be planned for, a few more weeks, and now I'll have to find something to replace replace them. But let me give you something else that's not on the Leaving Soon list at 2btv.com in case those other ones are gone. The first one, Sucker Punch. If you have been in the mood for Zack Snyder but haven't seen this one, maybe you've just watched the Snyder cut and you're like, oh, you know what, I do like this director, I do like his visual style, and you've never seen Sucker Punch, then I highly recommend you check this one out. The synopsis on IMDb reads, a young girl institutionalized by her abusive stepfather retreats to an alternative reality as a coping strategy and envisions a plan to help her escape. This was, I think, the movie that came out either before or after Watchmen. I can't remember now, but it was the movie that after I saw it, I think shortly after, I learned that he was going to be making Man of Steel, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see this, what this guy does with Superman. It's lots of green screen, blue screen stuff, and in that pseudo fake looking style that they used to, make some blue screen movies in, where it's like the backdrops were obviously fake, but in a kind of stylistically cool way. And as this girl is trying to cope with this horrible asylum that she's been institutionalized in, she retreats in her mind to this imaginary world where there are major parallels to what she's experiencing in the real world. And so as you're watching her, she retreats into these fantasy worlds that are like sci-fi and fantasy and all kinds of crazy mishmashes of geek entertainment genres with crazy cool slow-mo Snydery action and stuff. There are things going on in those kind of dreamlike sequences that represent things that are also going on in the real world. And so it's really interesting. It's very thought-provoking. It is a thinking man's, I think, or thinking woman's sci-fi action nerd fest. There's just some interesting conceptual stuff going on in this movie. And so, it was one of my favorite movies, if not my absolute favorite movie, the year that it came out. And I've really enjoyed revisiting it since. And so if you want crazy, off-the-wall, sci-fi, fantasy, mashup action with the Zack Snyder visual style, and you haven't seen Sucker Punch, then what are you waiting for? Go check it out at tubitv.com. The other one, much less recent, is Soldier, starring Kurt Russell. The IMDb synopsis reads, a soldier trained from birth is deemed obsolete and dumped on a waste planet where he is reluctantly taken in by a community of defenseless, stranded wayfarers. This was one of the first that I can remember kind of old guy tough movies. There's we've seen Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis and Rambo guy. What's his name? I can't remember now. But as these action stars began to get older, we started seeing movies that recognized the age of the characters that they played. And so we started seeing this tough old man, as it were, genre start to emerge. And this was one of the first ones that I remember kind of being the case where he was, not old by many standards, but probably Russell was in his 50s maybe by this point, maybe late 40s, I can't remember. But, getting older for an action star. And that's what the plot revolves around. It's this kind of genetically engineered soldier that is watching a new breed of soldier take his place that is more fierce and agile and stuff, and is made differently. And so the plot ultimately pits him against the younger, newer breed of genetically engineered soldier, and when he has been kind of disposed of. And so it's kind of like if you're like in your middle-aged years, like I guess I am officially now. As a 43-year-old. Even back when I saw this in my 20s, because it came out in 1998, it was still appealing to me because, I was like, yeah, people shouldn't be forgotten and seemed and determined to be useless and irrelevant just because they get older. We have this whole obsession with youth that we've had in entertainment culture for years and years. And so if you just kind of like I do have long rebelled against that whole notion of like what's young and hot and sexy is all that's relevant, then I think there's something that you'll find appealing in this. Even if you're not in that stage of life or you don't feel that way, as a nerd, I think there's some appeal of like like the one who is forgotten and overlooked turning out to be what is really useful and most valuable and appropriate for the task at hand. And so I think there's a lot of appeal for geeks in Soldier, starring Kurt Russell. And again, that one's at tubitv.com. All right, now back to the stuff I recorded before. The TV show I'm going to recommend this year is one that you maybe have seen, but I think is probably worth revisiting and definitely worth checking out if you've never seen it before and are into spy action, drama, suspense stuff. And that is, of course, Alias, the now classic TV show that made Jennifer Garner a star. You can watch Alias on tubitv.com. The synopsis on IMDb reads, Sydney Bristow is an international spy recruited out of college, trained for espionage and self-defense. And this is a spy action suspense TV series with light sci-fi in the form of the gadgets that the show plays around with, as many spy action fiction shows and movies do. It also, though, leverages adult family relationship dynamics, father-daughter stuff and mother and daughter stuff, and especially in the first 2 seasons, I really think that the show peaks in the second season, and then kind of go, especially if you're into the family drama stuff. Then it gets into some more love triangle-y type stuff, and if you're cool with that, then there's a lot still for you to enjoy after the second season. I mean, it's still, the core of it is still really solid, and the father-daughter stuff is still very much on display, and really solid. So, I mean, my wife and I watched it all the way through to the end. It does, at the end, because Jennifer Garner was pregnant during the last season, she kind of takes a side role, and they introduce 2 other spy characters to kind of keep spy things happening for a while Jennifer Garner is being pregnant. And so I think that some of the content of the last series causes it to, I don't want to say end with a whimper and not a bang, because by the time the last handful of episodes come along, Jennifer Garner was done being pregnant and was back in shape and doing cool, Sydney Bristow stuff to bring the series to a close. And I think that it has some bittersweet elements, but also a satisfying end to the series. Anyway, it's one of those shows that we found to be like potato chips, where it's just one more. So there is a trick if you find yourself like unable to stop binging, is to realize that shows like this you can watch from halfway point to halfway point. There was a couple we knew years ago when we were watching the show that we discovered watched it that way. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, because they almost always end on a cliffhanger, but then that cliffhanger is usually resolved within about the first 15 to 20 minutes of the next episode. So if you watch just that far and get in the habit of stopping then you can, avoid binging a little bit. But it's certainly structured to be very binge-worthy and enjoyable in that way. It does get a little racy now and then as Sydney Bristow is taking on spy roles where she's maybe seducing people or being kind of sexy or whatever. I don't remember that being a really frequent thing. It was more during like season premieres when they were trying to like really hook viewers, like, okay, let's objectify our lead actress so we can get in, men based on the worst part of them, So in some of those kind of like key episodes where they're trying to get in viewers, that they'll do those kinds of things with Jennifer Garner, which is really unfortunate. But lots of great suspense and emotion tied to some of the best TV action of the period. Okay, so now the console game. I'm actually going to give you 2. It's a kind of 1 but 2. It's 2 games in a series, and that's Crackdown. Crackdown 1 and 2, which actually, excuse me, they are Xbox exclusives, but you can still get these if you have an Xbox 360. A lot of people that did not stay with Xbox still have an Xbox 360, and on that console you can download both of these absolutely for free. And you can also, of course, get it on the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X or Series S. The Crackdown 1 summary reads, enforce justice by any means necessary in a crime-ridden urban center built to encourage the exploration of the full width, depth, and height of the city, coupled with co-op gameplay, a first for the genre, and an interactive world where nearly anything can be used as a weapon. Create a volatile cocktail of action as you clean up the streets. So this is a big kind of like action, open city, third-person game that has some crossover appeal with a game like Saints Row. I don't think it has the same kind of humor, but just that, like, these guys are superhuman dudes with guns going around and just wreaking havoc in the city. It's really what this series is known for. It's got a Metacritic score of 83, the first one, and back in the day, G4TV said of Crackdown, this is the kind of game that takes over your brain after long play sessions, leading you to scrutinize real-life buildings for handholds and leaping potential. It's an absolute blast to play, and arguably one of the finest superhero games made thus far. And that really reminds me of these types of games where I noticed after I started playing these games, like, I had to settle down when I was driving on the freeway after playing Saints Row for a while. I was like, hey, settle down. You don't have to zig and zag and get through people and be in the front of the pack. Just settle down. It is really interesting how absorbing and enthralling these worlds can be. And Crackdown 2 got a Metacritic score of 70, so not as high as the 83 that Crackdown 1 received, but Game Trailers, when they reviewed it, said it's hard to argue with Crackdown 2's draw. After a multi-hour session consisting of little more than hunting down agility orbs and engaging in unstructured havoc, you still find it hard to peel yourself away. So anyway, two really respected games, especially the first one, but I think a lot of people that enjoyed the first one also really enjoyed the second one. So that's Crackdown 1 and 2 available on the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, and the Xbox Series X or S. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back in a few weeks with another set of Summer of Free entertainment suggestions. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe and then click that bell so that you don't miss out. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Do you believe in the supernatural?
Download the Legacy Edition of Spirit Blade, a full past audio drama, for free at spiritblade.com.